on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Change isn't just a constant, it's a necessity. It wouldn't be strange to say that a lot of the world's evils are a result of people's resistance to change. But on a smaller level, change is just healthy. The way our engagement with franchises goes, we have to shift priorities. I'm probably not the only one who feels this way, but lately I've been feeling a bit indifferent to a lot of Hasbro's recent offerings. Yeah, big shocker with the last two reviews, I know. A return to G1, despite the fact many of the figures have already been done really well, budgets being scaled back, even reissuing figures. It's a great way to not overstretch resources, but when I already have so much of it, there is a sense of melancholy seeing so many people get excited while I'm already satiated. And sure, some of this might just be exhaustion. I have, after all, recently finished a monster of a review that has immersed me in the unification era at most hours of the day for a consecutive year and a half. For a time, I lived and breathed Legacy, and when Age of the Primes doesn't quite hold up to the pedigree, of course it's going to feel more severe. So as I find myself at a crossroads for collecting, I start to see parallels. What did I do last time I felt a lull in collecting? Well, I engaged in third-party Legends, of course. These used to be my shit, to the point where many still call me the Legends expert, despite the fact I've taken many a year off. When I left, I was seeing a concerning pattern of companies shifting towards third-party masterpiece styles of doing things, endless over-complexity to lock in extreme toon accuracy. It's not why I started collecting, it's not what drew me to the niche originally, and my sensibilities were being pushed to the side. But that's not necessarily how things are done anymore. There's way more companies on the block now, and they're all doing crazy new things. I was completely wrong about the popularity of Doctor Wu. Their Micromaster scale lineup has been going strong for a while now, and it's left me scrambling to back collect. Mechanical Skull Studio is gearing up to do a lot of the errors third party usually forgets, and if they're half as good as their first release, we're in for some good shit. And in my most overlooked aspect, Iron Factory has continued to chug along, doing their own thing. I was so caught up in the Lio Kaiser releases that I completely forgot that their philosophy never really changed. Maybe they slowed down a bit and shifted to a style that I wasn't crazy about, but they never stopped with the cool shit. It was always there, I just didn't notice. Greetings, Cybertronians, I'm DrLockdown, and today's diagnosis pertains to Iron Factory EX-64D Dynamite Wrangler, or to most, Iron Warrior Outback. Weird that despite being Aussie, I've never actually reviewed an Outback toy, but hey, stranger things have happened. I still haven't properly reviewed a Lockdown toy either. Shame they didn't actually get an Australian to voice him though, but I suppose it was the 80s and nobody really gave a shit. Many of my favorite Iron Factory figures are simply their original versions with a slight stylization applied on top and a heavy focus on creative engineering. Hounds, Cliffjumper, Sea Spray, hell, to an extent, Lio Kaiser is built on stuff like that. And Outback is in a similar vein, as far as I can gather, is not particularly based on any version of his IDW self, on account for just not being a big player. As such, they're sort of free to design him however they like. And in vehicle mode, if you've seen how Iron Factory typically do things, you probably know what to expect. It's way more cohesive than a lot of their older outings, but it's broken up by a lot of panel work. It feels like one of those early 2000s anime vehicles where everything is blocky and shiny thanks to those newfangled 3D graphics. It's going to turn people off. Folks like vehicle modes to be sleek and smooth, and this isn't it. This looks like it transforms, and it's an acquired taste. I've personally acquired it, and I'm honestly feeling a little nostalgic to see it again. When was the last time I covered this style? 6 years ago? It can often be a little difficult to get Outback's color scheme to work, given it's very muted. Fitting for a bot that would be found in drop bear country. They've gotten around this by using paint instead of base plastic, which you can see on some of the pieces mid-transformation. Some folks are vehemently anti-full coat, and this is going to put them off, but I think it looks wonderful. It really helps pick out a lot of the smaller, subtler details like the hidden panel lines and the stuff on the bonnet. Then you bring the gorgeous silver and grey windows into the mix, and he really shines, quite literally in some instances. The retro version wishes it could be this lovely. It does get a bit scrappy towards the back, and since these bits only become kneecaps anyway, I kinda wish these would have stretched out a bit further. But overall, it's pretty nice, and at the size, it's not too big of a deal. Plus, they make up for it with a killer spare tire assembly, which is even integrated into the conversion. F***ing ace. The windows are lovely, boxed in with thick, beefy frames and chunky rearview mirrors. Often these can get missed on Legends figures, so they're nice to see here. And I adore the grille section, a perfect balance of roundness and blocky chunkitude. The multiple shades and extended bull bar do wonders to frame the chunky back section. While I prefer the way the retro design works, this is still perfect for the vibe. I don't don't even mind how the bonnet is a smidge hollow on the sides, it's barely noticeable from most angles, and far less egregious than the roof gap. Plus, well, you know, especially in these colors, they've done a remarkable job of making a lot of those chunks fit together. It might look a bit patchworky at times, but like many previous figures, Iron Factory has done incredibly in integrating that into their aesthetic. It's still unmistakably Outback, but it's so fresh and interesting, despite releasing 3 years ago. Really shouldn't have dropped out of the niche after the Zeta shitstorm. What was I thinking? I do have 2 gripes with this though, nothing major, but some things that do annoy me. Firstly, a couple of the panels just don't have particularly good locking tabs. Sure, the side ones are cute in fan moding opening doors, long as you can ignore the window left behind, but the feet not tabbing in place? Come on, after you transform this a bunch of times, that's going to become loose and start falling to the ground. They put all this effort into making the underside clean as a whistle, an aspect that is completely useless for legend scaled figures, yet there's no tabs here? Come on, it would have been real easy. And secondly, the weapon storage is a bit annoying, giving us some flashbacks to the Bruticus set. One of them fits in real easy, while the other gets blocked off by one of the transformation hinges. I really like how these hinges fit into the roll cage aesthetic, blending into the design, but this whole feature would have felt way better if the gun was pegged in properly. Though I guess the weapon storage is optional, so it doesn't particularly matter, and at the end of the day, it's still a cracking alt mode. It's a style I've sorely been missing in an age where even Legends is inching further into the hypertoon accurate abyss. This wasn't a mode I was expecting to go nuts over, but I've really fallen in love with it. I think Legends might really be back, or at least my appreciation of it. God, I've missed this. The transformation here is very similar to some of the best figures I've discussed from the Iron Factory lineup. There are a few times where it gets in the way of itself, but by and large it's very enjoyable. Now, a lot of reviewers have called this an absolute nightmare, one of their worst, and that's really exaggerated. There are a few bits that clash a little bit, but by and large it's a very enjoyable experience. Now, the first thing you want to do is bring these panels up to the sides and rotate them around, just to start getting everything out of the way. And I suppose the bottom half is the good place to start, so you just want to jicky these out of those. Bring the feet up for later. Once it's all out of the way, you can separate the legs, and you do have to separate the legs first. That will allow you to bring the 2 halves of the back tire together, which will allow you to bring these knee pads forward. They've got those unfortunate Iron Factory knees where they're on the double hinge and they don't really lock into place, but hey, at least it's better than a sliding rail, I suppose. They just shimmy up forward like so. This will rotate like so, and then the feet will come down, with this ankle part coming up and clicking into place. This section rotating around and into place like so. And that'll allow you to rotate the foot into place like so. And then you bring around the foot and you get the nice ankle tilt there, and you're all good. Bring these panels up to the sides and out of the way. Separate these from the front panel. Separate that from the front too. This panel does have a tendency to fall off if you're not careful. They retooled this piece between the 2 versions, so they kind of made it removable. But you know, just use glue, please. I shouldn't have to keep telling third-party companies to just use some glue to keep it in place. Anywho, this bit goes all the way down. These bits are just going to rotate around, and you can bring them in place later. The arms rotate outwards. The torso rotates downwards. The head gets brought forward and rotated around 180 degrees. You do need the head like that so that there's enough clearance for the torso. You want to make sure these are in place first before you rotate them around like so. Just otherwise they will not fit into place. So if you're going the other way, make sure to rotate these first before fixing everything up. Make sure the panels are all in and everything's all in together, and then this will fold over the top, softly securing it in place. There's no click motion, sadly, but it gets the job done. Anyway, make sure this is nice and tabbed in. These panels on the side will rotate down to the sides here. Sadly, no locking tabs, but it could be worse. And then you bring the arms up like so, and those panels from earlier rotate into the wrists like so, and you are basically done. Aside from a waist swivel, which, of course, I always forget something. I'm always a idiot. So yeah, honestly, quite a fun conversion, and I'd say very overhated. Though, in retrospect, I think a lot of the people that were hating on this were more of the third-party Masterpiece crowd that just happened to be dabbling in this, and insisting that Iron Factory be more like third-party Masterpiece, which it isn't. It's its own thing. Whenever it tries to be that, it just fails miserably. But yeah, this is a really fun desk toy, and one that I haven't really been able to take off my desk for quite some time. For reference, I wrote this script pretty much 4 months ago, and I've just had it in the back of my mind this whole time, waiting for the legacy video to finish, then waiting for everything else to finish. And I kept the script around, and I didn't really need to make any changes to it, because I still love this guy, the same as I loved it initially. It still remains as fun as ever. And hey, we love a good bit of hypocrisy where people will say this is the worst thing ever, but then say Magic Square's stuff and DX9 stuff is utterly amazing. Because apparently something as fun as this is the spawn of Satan, and apparently the most frustrating, annoying conversions on the planet are pure sex. So, yay hypocrisy. The phrase Iron Factory Outback is somewhat of an oxymoron. Iron Factory is known for truly brilliant stylization and, at times, quite fun engineering. They are the forerunners of third-party legends, and as such, they have a certain aesthetic prowess to their design philosophy. Then you have Outback, who is Outback. Out of all the G1 designs, it's probably not the most boring, but is definitely up there. In both tune and toy, it's overall pretty sourceless. A black hole of visual interest amongst any lineup. And there lies the dilemma. How do you take that design and give it the usual Iron Factory flair? What the f*** are you supposed to do here? Well, it turns out, the same as they always do. Keep on trucking, or vanning, I suppose, with the same old brilliant aesthetic realization. The head sculpt is lovely, incredibly angular and grumpy. Rocking those crisp metallic blue sunnies you'd find at Bunnings, it works really well when juxtaposed against the bulky backpack. You've got a jagged middle and a cuboid frame behind, so it helps stand out quite well. Will say, while the eye shade is lovely, I'm glad it wasn't overused and put on the windows as well. That would have been really gorgeous. The blue returns on the torso with a lovely recreation of the G1 toy sticker detail. Crisp and clean, yet hella popping. I dig it. The chest plate is a perfect balance of chunkiness and form-fitting. It stands out well enough, but it doesn't stick out too far so that it feels separate from the rest of the design, even if engineering-wise it does feel like that with issues I'll get to later. The silver arms, joinking the shade right from the alt mode, act as a wonderful salient feature. Combined with the matte finish of the sandstone shade, they really help Outback avoid looking dull and boring. They're wonderfully articulated too, which is excellent to see. I especially like how they don't rely on that really gross method the Earthrise hoist family of molds used, where the back kibble gets in the way of the rest of the arm. I don't mind different styles of shoulder being used on figures with unique transformations, it's more so how the kibble attaches to it, and this at least does that well, even if the shoulders are pretty normal. I love the legs with the way everything comes together. The kneecaps being formed from the top is a stroke of genius, and the tail lights sticking out are a really nice touch. Not sure if the light blue was the best choice for them, but it's still a cute little feature. The way the feet work is also really cool, tucking the wheel right in there in a manner similar to Studio Series Ironhide. No, the other one. No, the other one. The first one, you idiots! God, I don't think Studio Series even means anything anymore these days. The only messy part of the legs that bugs me is the spare tire, but given how cool it is during the conversion, I'd say it's a worthy trade-off. Plus, I don't know how they'd fix it short of removing it entirely, aside from maybe painting the undersides, which, yeah, I think that's a bit expensive. Even the backpack does insanely well. While it doesn't lock together specifically, it holds on nice and tightly and remains super cohesive. I can see now why they were so careful with painting the skeleton in silver, because it makes all these kibble bits seem way more purposeful. They even painted the insides, even though you can barely see it. That's honestly insane. Maybe that could have been reallocated to the undersides of the leg tires, but Faults on this guy are very few and far between. Firstly, much like the alt mode, there's bits that just refuse to tab in, only this time there's way more of them. The chest plate, both panels on each arm, the tires, the hollowness covers on the backs of the shins, like, there's gotta be locking tabs! Sure, it's better than some previous examples, but a Macca's burger being slightly juicier than the last one is still a Macca's burger. Get a real burger, support local business. I realized tabs would make some of the vehicle mode look unsightly, but there had to be a happy middle ground like soft locking points or octagonal hinges. Outback here is lucky he's constructed entirely out of right angles, because otherwise he'd basically end up like Titanium Saint. And secondly, Iron Factory knees. These have been the bane of my existence for so many years. They're not the worst knee joint they've ever done, but can we please stop with these? It's like the locking tab thing again. Without a solid locking point, they're just gonna loosen and break down over time. Why can't we use the Combiner Wars style of extension instead? What's stopping them? Come on. But what's interesting is, the more time I spend with Outback, the more I find myself able to get over these issues. Much like with the transformation, learning the figure and its limitations allows me to engage better in its positives. I get lost in the mechanical detail and the crisp paint scheme for Outback of all characters. Honestly, a wild turn of events. Accessories are also quite substantial. You've got 3 sets of alternate fists, so 4 in total. Out of the box, you've got closed fists, but additionally, there's open hands and 2 sets of grabby hands. Personally, I've never been too crazy on the whole swappable hands thing, as it just leads to them getting lost, and outside of photography, there's not much use for them. But I know they're popular, so it's good to see them here, at least for other collectors. Holy run-on sentence, Batman! Fortunately, you can still keep the holding fists in place while he transforms, which I feel is the bare minimum.
Looking at you, Lyoclone boy.
Unfortunately, they're a bit looser than the standard ones, which on a figure this small is scary. I really don't want to lose these things. Please no. And of course, for the use with the holding hands, you get 4 guns total in 2 sorts of sets. The first 2 are twin pistols, which, well, you know how I feel about twin pistols. Give him a trench coat and is well on his way to my favorite aesthetic ever. God damn, to pull off the Celine look. I swear I'm not an egg. Also, not to be confused with Celine, the system admin of my partner's system. Also, hi, honey! They look pretty cool, but I'm not sure they fit with the overall rough and tumble aesthetic. Maybe they fit better with his mold-mate brawn, but I don't know. Hard to say. Fortunately, you get 2 more that fit a bit closer, a shotgun and a cannon. The latter, of course, being a throwback to his original G1 toy. These 2 fit way better with the vibe overall, and have some rather nice detail on show. You even get an adapter piece to do the whole G1 shoulder cannon thingo, which I never managed to try out because my G1 Outback is missing its cannon. Ah, the joys of moving house. I still haven't found G1 Bumblebee to this day. This could probably use some better fit and finish though. You're always left with this obnoxious tab sticking out because it's just a mirrored piece that goes either way. Though to be fair, big whoop. I will criticize the connection port though. Having to plug and unplug the ball socket seems like a recipe for degradation disaster later down the line. It's a cool feature, but sadly not quite as satisfying as it could be. Also, and maybe this is just me personally, I kinda wish there was a way to store the pistols on the legs so we can store all 4 weapons at once. Again, big whoop, but it still feels like a missed opportunity personally. Still, hardly something worth getting super fussed over, and at least they accentuate the articulation pretty well, and said articulation is quite snazzy. If you've messed with previous Iron Factory figures, you'll know what to expect here. Much as I dislike the knee system, at least it's got some nice range, matching up nicely with the double jointed elbows. The only part I wish was deeper was the ab crunch, but like, having one to begin with is already astonishing. I'm not going to say doing an Outback in this style was an idea that shouldn't have worked, but it was definitely an uphill battle. Changes had to be made, not to where everything ended up, but definitely in the aesthetic department. And yet, they walk the line almost perfectly. He's still very much Outback, and the vibe isn't lost at all, but he takes on a whole new life with the sculpting and articulation. I'd still say figures like Hound and Sea Spray are far better, especially with how the engineering works, but this is still a cracking release that I keep coming back to even to this day. It's like him, Devastation Bumblebee, and Universe 2008 Roadbuster. Those are like semi-permanently on my desk right now, and coincidentally what spurred me on to cover all of them. I just wish I knew more about third-party designer lineups, because unfortunately, I'll never know who to attribute this to. I'll never know whom crafted such a wonderful release with such creative choices, nor will I be able to know what else they worked on. It feels very Hound-esque, but I'll never be able to be certain. That's a bit of a shame, but if that's my biggest gripe with this figure, I think they're doing pretty well. Collecting priorities ebb and flow, often with the changes official products undergo. You can't collect the same things forever for the sake of your own sanity. At some point, you either have to shift focus or pack it in entirely. In times like these, I find it's good to go back to your roots and refocus on some of the niches that made you so invested in the hobby to begin with. Outback was initially just meant for me to dip my toe back into things, but it's instantly immersed me back in the stimming world of high-end small-scale figures. While not a perfect toy, it makes me feel a specific type of joy I just haven't felt in a long time. Sure, he gets in his own way a bit, but me dead, he hits me right where he should. The focus primarily on engineering, molding its aesthetic wholly around it, isn't something we see often. Sure, some toy lines try, but with all these limitations placed on them, it's never quite like this. And to find out it never truly died, that my legends were always here, it's both reassuring and nostalgic. So, I guess that does it. I guess this signals my return to a niche that honestly acts as a pretty big pillar of my collection already. And there's not really a lot to say other than me, it's good to be back. But as always, fan and public consciousness is a conversation, so drop your own collecting journey stories below. Are you finding official stuff is making you move on? How are you dealing with the changes in priorities as you grow older? Are you still fully in the official space? Do you not feel any desire to change at all? And as always, remember, there's a context for everything. Till next time.